friends, it's Jasmine, and I hope that you all are doing well as we are shifting into the new year. If you don't already know me, my name is Jasmine, and I have a witchy channel here on YouTube. So if you're into witchcraft, folklore, paganism, the left-hand path, set here, you will find things like that here on my channel. I am a practicing witch, a reader, and a high priestess of the Solar Court Coven. It's really strange anytime someone is like, oh, tell us a little bit about yourself. Because kind of like in school, maybe on like your first week or so, if your teachers would be like, oh, say your name and like one fun fact about yourself, I suddenly like, I don't know, have like a weird like break in my mind where I'm like, who are we? Who are we? But yeah, I'm trying to, kind of do a little bit more of like a quick little intro, especially because I'm seeing that a lot of people are watching my videos who aren't always subscribed. I guess only about like 70-something% of people who watch my channel are actually subscribed, which means there's like a good 30-something% of folks who are seeing my videos and who aren't subscribing. So if witchcraft and the occult is an interest of yours and you would like to hear my perspective and listen to some things that I have to say in regards to these things, then definitely make sure that you like this video. It really helps support the channel, and subscribe and hit that bell too. Anyway, today I kind of wanted to talk about something that I've been seeing kind of resurfacing again. And I've shared my opinions here and there on the podcast or other people's channels, but I don't actually have a video of my own kind of detailing my personal thoughts about this matter. So this particular video, I'm going to talk about baneful magic, black magic, and the rule of three. To me is a very, very, very serious and important video, and one that I will probably be using as reference in the future when I'm having conversations with other witches or clients and this situation gets brought up. First, I would like to talk about black magic and the word black magic and the title of black magic and like what this means in my eyes. So I think especially here in the West, black magic is often just thought of as like evil intentions, offensive magic, trying to bend the free will of another person. And I personally don't really use the terminology black magic. And I do think that we need to be conscious of the dialogue and language that we are using. And I think it's a little bit suspicious that anything and everything that is white or light is automatically considered right. And everything that is black or dark is evil and wrong. And I would encourage you all to think about why that might be. I prefer to use the terminology baneful magic because when we are talking about, wicked deeds or evilness, that's really what we mean. We're talking about offensive magic. We're talking about baneful acts. Color to me really doesn't necessarily equate to intention. When I think of black magic as well, when we think of black or night or the dark, we can also think of unseen, right? Kind of like white or light would be more like the seen. And what I mean by that is things like astral travel could be kind of considered dark magic because it's working with forces of the unseen. It's working with the astral versus like white or light. To me, that's more like working with things that you can visibly, physically see. It's illuminated in front of you. So I think that is my personal perspective on white magic, black magic. And this topic is definitely one that is fully loaded. And I think that we all need to, as witches in 2022, when I'm filming this, I think that we all need to pause and consider the language that we are using and consider why we are using the words that we are using and what we actually mean. Because like I've said, when it comes to black magic, typically what we actually mean is baneful, offensive, or even evil. That's what we mean. So why don't we say what we mean? Say baneful magic, offensive magic, as opposed to placing a color attribution to this, because I feel like we're really kind of dropping the ball in a multitude of ways. There are also people who find this to be incredibly offensive or slanderous, and there are many videos of that already here on YouTube. And if you're interested in hearing more about this, then I would encourage you to kind of do your own research. I think living in 2022 in this world of essentially Google being the great grimoire, there's no reason for you to not educate yourself. Things are so fully accessible to us that there's really no reason. For me personally, I am someone who does practice baneful magic. I am someone who does practice offensive magic. To me, as a witch, whether we use our left or right hand magically, I believe that magic is our birthright. I believe that as witches, we are born witches and we are born inherently with arcane power flowing through our veins. And I also believe that it is a chosen path as well. And regardless, I think that it is our birthright to help or harm using our magic. Magic is something that has also always been political. I don't know why some people want to take the politics out of witchcraft. Witchcraft has always been a tool for the marginalized. It has always been something of liberation. It has always been used to help uplift and support silenced voices. There's also the concept of this whole rule of three, right? To where the belief is, a commonly accepted belief is, if I point my finger and if I send something out, I've got 3 fingers pointing back at me, right? So if I throw magic out, it's going to come back to me 3 times or amplified 3 times. Here's why I think that this is actually incredibly toxic and why I actually don't subscribe to this belief. One, I don't believe that deity and the universe is going to punish you for protecting yourself, sticking up for yourself, and defending yourself. I don't think that the universe is going to, smack you down for that. Also, I personally find that for me, my magic mirrors nature to a certain degree. And as a witch, just like with the Wheel of the Year behind me here, or the full moons, I try to kind of attune myself with the natural seasons and cycles of the earth and the moon. And nature can be, soft and gentle and healing. And it can also be incredibly cruel and unrelenting. And I believe that my magic mirrors that. My magic can be a calm spring meadow, or my magic can be a hurricane. And it really depends on what is going on, the situations, all the factors. And I believe that it is up to me to decide what is right for me and in my reality and in my world. And that kind of determines my behavior and how I react magically. I don't think that the gods or the universe is going to smack you down and punish you for doing what is inherently in your nature to do. Do we punish the lion for eating the lamb? Right. As a witch, it's in our nature to wield magic. Now, if you choose to use it for positive or negative purposes, that is your prerogative. And what is considered good or evil, positive or negative, is also highly subjective, right? So, for example, maybe a money spell. Maybe you're going to do a spell in order to get a promotion, right? And maybe you're not necessarily, struggling financially, but it would be nice to make some more money. But imagine your coworker is a single mom who's barely skirting by, and this promotion could be the difference between having some extra money for her to put back for her family. Is that evil of you to do that money spell? Did you know that your coworker was struggling? Should you not, support your own best interest? Even when it comes to cleansing and banishing, a proper exorcism or cleansing or banishing of a space requires a certain amount of commanding, demanding, and controlling vibration that you will not find with love and light. I also think that, we need to be realistic here as well. And when it comes to, do no harm, do as thou wilt, if you will. And it harm none, do as thy will. Whatever sort of rendition you want to look at. I also don't necessarily subscribe to this either. Now, that's not to say that Wicca as a whole has not greatly influenced the Western occult world. And in many ways, I think that it's a positive thing. And there are some aspects of Wicca that have kind of become a part of my personal practice. And I'm not sitting here bashing anyone necessarily who's Wiccan or saying that we should throw out the entire tradition because of a couple things that I have issue with it. I will say that in my eyes, the concept of "and at harm, do as thy will" is kind of an ideal. I think it's nice to strive to, make as little of a negative impact as possible. That might be a nice ideal for some people, but ultimately surviving and living causes harm. Where do we draw the line at harm would be my question to someone who supports the idea of "and at harm none, do as thy will." Are you supporting the dairy industry? Are you supporting the meat industry? Are you making your own clothing, or is your clothing made by child slave labor overseas? A lot of this, I think, is very performative, because truthfully, I don't think that you're able to really live and survive in this world that we live in without there being harm. Now, I'm not saying you should go out of your way to hurt people either, but I don't think that if harm comes as a part of life, it's inherently linked to it. Life and death are connected forces that really truly cannot be separated from each other. I personally find it very rich and entertaining and nonsensical when witches like to tout, well, real witches do this or real witches do that. Real witches don't hex. Real witches don't curse. Witches don't believe in the devil. And what I like to always say back to that is, you don't hex, you don't curse, and you don't believe in the devil. And I understand where this comes from. It comes from a place of trying to avoid the satanic panic or witches being associated with evil, blasphemous acts. So I know where some of this comes from, but it is historically and factually inaccurate. And we would know this if we applied ourselves with the first tier of the witch's pyramid to know. To know, to will, to dare, to keep silent, that witch's pyramid, right? Or even to go, if you take it to that next level. Now, in occult literature, we can find many resources of magic being used in a political fashion and also in a baneful fashion, or in a traditionally as preconceived black magic, if you will, as evil or offensive magic. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. If you're not already familiar with some of these texts, I would suggest that you kind of familiarize yourself. First ones that I have here is by Maximilien de Lafayette, Sihir, Jinn, Afrit, and How to Summon Them. And this is essentially a book that's not exclusively baneful, but it does include baneful acts and working with jinn and spirits in this book. The Crooked Path, which this is one that I'm still currently reading. It's on my reading list, but it does include working with essentially like the Witch King or like the Witch Devil. And there are things in here about souring someone's prosperity or revenge. This is something that is a part of traditional witchcraft that you cannot remove from it. These two books here as well, the Book of Smokeless Fire and the Book of Smokeless Fire 2, Into the Crucible. You can look at some reviews of both of these books online, and both of these speak highly to conjuring shayateen or very malefic spirits and jinn to come for your enemies. This is a type of magic set here, which has been done throughout the Middle East, Mesopotamia, ancient Samaria that has been done for a long time as a way to manifest your will into reality through working with the jinn and other spirits. Of course, you can also look at books, religious texts such as the Bible or the Quran, which both have witches in them, and witches doing positive and negative things. For example, think about the Witch of Endor, or think about Jezebel. These are characters from these folklores and these mythologies that represent real witches. Backwoods Witchcraft, another book that I'm currently reading. This is about essentially the Appalachian conjure tradition. There is magic in this book that would be considered malefic. This one is one of my personal favorites and one that I have actually reviewed here on the channel if you're interested. Dorothy Morrison's Utterly Wicked. This is a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous book on curses and jinxes and revenge spells. I love Dorothy's writing style, and if baneful work is something that you're interested in, I highly recommend that you check this book out. Blackthorn's Botanical Brews. This is another one that I've personally reviewed on my channel. I think this is a great book. It's not specifically a baneful magic sort of book, but it is a book that does talk about, you know, mixing and making certain things to influence people or situations. This is a book that I like to bring up a lot, especially when witches talk about how witchcraft isn't political, and let's not make witchcraft political. And
why are we making it all about politics?
Baby, because witchcraft is political. Because witchcraft has always been a tool of the marginalized and the disenfranchised. The Gospel of Aradia. Need I say more? Okay. This is a book where witches were literally using witchcraft against their oppressors. And Aradia was teaching the Italian witches, the Strega, the art of magic as a way to free and liberate themselves from their oppressive lords. Don't tell me witchcraft isn't political when it is, babe. This is one of my personal favorite books, probably of all time, which is more of a folkloric piece of literature, and that would be Women Who Run with the Wolves. This is a great, great book. It has a lot of folklore and a lot of stories of empowering the feminine archetype in here. And there are witches in here, like, for example, La Loba, who uses necromancy to bring the dead wolves or coyotes back to life. That's a necromantic form of magic, and that's death magic. Something that a lot of people would consider black magic because it's necromancy. Of course, there's also the Malus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches, which I believe you can find some baneful or black magic inspiration from this text as well. This is also on my current reading list. I don't have it here in front of me, but another really great example would be the Picatrix, which essentially was the Gayat al-Hakim, which is an ancient Arabian grimoire that had been translated over. And it's essentially the magic of the high Arabian courts and a way to influence the nobility using witchcraft. So once again, a great example of baneful magic. Picatrix itself was literally written in a way to fuck up the reader or the non-initiated. So when you are looking at the Picatrix, if you choose to actually look at the Picatrix, definitely err on the side of caution, because the way that the Picatrix is written is it's filled with booby traps. It's a text of ancient magic that was used in an offensive manner, and there are some especially twisted spells in there, such as bending the free will of another person or very kind of problematic love spells, and you can kind of connect the dots there. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that on YouTube, because YouTube tends to be a little bit testy when you start talking about SA related things, but there is some of that in the book. And I think, you know, once witches actually start to delve into some of this literature, they tend to be very horrified because they're like, oh my gosh, who would do this? This is sick, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is crazy. I could never, blah, 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 right? Stop. I want you to stop and I want you to think for a second about the witches of this time period. So some of the magic that you might read about, for example, like in the Picatrix or the Book of Smokeless Fire, these are books that are pretty malefic in nature. Think about when, where, and why some of these books would be utilized and why some of this magic was tapped into. And when you think about that, try to tell me that politics are not a part of witchcraft. So I guess I would kind of just like to say that to me, witchcraft is political because it's historically something that has been political. And witches do actually hex and harm and maim and curse. This is something that is a part of our birthright as witches. Now, if you decide for yourself and in your practice that you're not going to wield baneful magic, that is a choice that you are fully entitled to make for yourself. But what I personally am not going to entertain is the complete disregard to tradition and history in regards to baneful magic in witchcraft. If I hear you say real witches don't hex, real witches don't curse, witchcraft isn't political, I am going to reference this video and I'm going to encourage you to get your hands deep into some of this literature and actually educate yourself. Because a lot of where this comes from, in my opinion, is actually not the occult community, but it's the New Age community. And it's through toxic light worship to the point where this love and light is a blinding force that prevents you from critical thinking. Anyway, I hope that you all have enjoyed this video. I know I've kind of ranted and gone on a tangent here. This is something that I feel especially passionate about. And I guess a good closing thought would be hexing, cursing, jinxing, malefic magic. It's up to you. This isn't about whether you should or shouldn't, because really only you can decide that for yourself. But don't say witches don't or have not practiced these sacred art forms when they've been practiced since witchcraft has been a thing. And also too, I don't believe that if you choose to practice this, that there's going to be this cosmic force that smacks you on your ass or even creates negative karma. Now, I do very much believe in the sense of like a ripple effect, sure. And maybe wielding certain types of magic can lead to certain effects, which might even lead to consequences. For example, maybe you have a roommate and you're sick of them and you throw some negative shit their way. Now they lost their job and can't pay rent and you're shit out of luck because you depend on them to pay their half of rent. That to me is a ramification of not A, doing proper divination before doing the magics, and B, not really thinking things fully through. Guys, definitely check out the links below in the description. You'll be able to find all of my links there. And remember to subscribe. I really appreciate all the love and all the support. And until next time, blessed be.